Hello friends, in previous lecture we are discussing the pregnancy, basically the fertilization and the little bit about the placenta. We already discussed about the exchange function of the placenta, and lastly we discussed the double Bohr effect. Now in today's lecture we are going to discuss about the endocrine function of the placenta. So before we start the endocrine function, let's enumerate the hormones that are secreted from the placenta. So first hormone is the HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, then progesterone, estrogen, human placental lactogen, and finally the relaxin. Right. Now we are going to discuss one by one. First is the human chorionic gonadotropin. Now, as far as the human chorionic gonadotropin is concerned, you can see in this diagram it show you the levels of the hormones. This green one is the human chorionic gonadotropin. This one orange color is the estrogen. This violet color is the progesterone. Now you can see at the time of the delivery all the hormones ceases to the low level, right? Now as far as the human chorionic gonadotropin is concerned, it is basically increased and reached to the peak in the early half of a pregnancy or in very early period of the pregnancy, and after the 3 month or the third month of the pregnancy it reached to the lower level and continues as a low value, right? So basically all the hormones that is secreted from the placenta are basically secreted from the syncytial trophoblastic cell. So basically human chorionic gonadotropin secreted by the syncytial trophoblast cell, and its level is first measured in the blood in the first week after the fertilization. So it is the first hormone that is seen after the pregnancy, and that secretion is reached to the maximum at the 10th week of the pregnancy. So this both the time period is important as far as the YY is concerned. The human chorionic gonadotropin is appear in the blood in the first week after the fertilization, and at the 10th week it reached to the maximum. Now it appears in the urine at the 10th day of after the fertilization. You need to remember this third one also. It appear in the urine at the 10th day after the fertilization. Basically in some books it is written as a 9 days, but in order to remember very easily, you can easily remember that 1 week in the blood after the fertilization, 10 days after the fertilization in the urine, and 10 week it reached to the maximum, and after that it decreased to the lower value about 4 to 5 months, and it continues at this level until the delivery. So as far as the appearance of human chorionic gonadotropin inside the urine is concerned, there is one comment is actually asked. The comment is like that: for early diagnosis of a pregnancy, urine is tested. So the answer you have to supposed to write it down like this: after the fertilization, as soon as the placenta form, syncytial trophoblast starts secreting the human chorionic gonadotropin. That HCG is begin to appear at the 9th day after the fertilization, and so early diagnosis of the pregnancy, urine is tested for HCG. That is the complete answer, and you get 2 marks. Now as far as the function of the HCG is concerned, it is basically same as LH. Yes, luteinizing hormone. Now what are the function of the luteinizing hormone? It preserve the corpus luteum. So same as luteinizing hormone, the HCG prevent the involution of a corpus luteum, and in the presence of the HCG, corpus luteum even grows to the twice to its initial size. Second function of a corpus luteum, the function of the HCG is that it increases the sex hormone from the corpus luteum. It increases the secretion of the progesterone as well as estrogen. Now it also prevent the menstruation, and finally it causes the growth of the endometrium via progesterone and estrogen, and it convert the endometrial cell into the decidual cell. Now as I told you earlier, the decidual cell are nothing but the endometrial cell that is rich in nutrition. After the fertilization, the endometrial cell is now known as a decidual cell. Decidual cell are not any other cell that is appeared after the pregnancy, but it is actually the endometrial cell that became very thick. It be nourished, and it loaded with the glycogen and lipid, to provide nutrition to the fertilized ovum. So after the 12th week, placenta secrete a sufficient amount of the estrogen and progesterone. So the period starting from the fertilization till the 12 week, placenta is not mature or not developed as it should be, right? So initial 12 week, so basically the initial 3 to 4 month, the corpus luteum will secrete the estrogen and progesterone, but after 12 weeks, as the placenta will form in its actual size, then it starts synthesizing the enough amount of progesterone and estrogen. Now after that we do not need corpus luteum, right? So after 12 week, from 13th to 17th week, corpus luteum start involution. And one another function of the HCG is it is very immunosuppressive. So basically it prevents the rejection of a fetus, that is foreign body to the mother. So it basically prevent the rejection of a fetus. There are another reason also that we discuss in our subsequent slide. Now one more function that I would like to add is that the effect of HCG on male fetus testis. As we already know, the LH is basically stimulate the Leydig cell, interstitial Leydig cell, to produce testosterone until the birth. Now it causes the fetus, this testosterone causes the fetus to grow male sex organs instead of a female organ. And near the end of the pregnancy, it causes descent of a testis into the scrotum. Alright, this is the function of the HCG in male fetus testis. So LH eventually stimulate the Leydig cell. Leydig cell will start synthesizing the testosterone. Now this testosterone will ultimately switch the development of the reproductive organ from female to the male. If testosterone is absent by anyhow, then the female sexual organ will be developed. Now the next hormone is the estrogen. Now as we know that all the hormone, it is secreted by placenta from the syncytial trophoblast cell. So estrogen is also secreted by the syncytial trophoblast cell, but it is not synthesized de novo. It is not synthesized from the raw material to the estrogen inside the placenta. Instead, they require certain intermediate product, and this intermediate product will ultimately made estrogen. So it form entirely from two things. One is the dehydroepiandrosterone, another one is the 16th hydroxy dehydroepiandrosterone. Now both this androgen will formed in the mother and the fetal adrenal gland, and both this androgen will eventually transported to the placenta, and placenta do nothing but just the aromatization of that is androgen and converted into the estradiol, estrone and estriol. Now when this estradiol will form, where this estrone will form, and where this estriol will form, that we discuss in our fetoplacental unit. So don't worry, we covered that topic in our subsequent slide. Now the function of the estrogen is concerned, you already know the function of the estrogen. The same function you have to write it down over here. During the pregnancy, the large amount of estrogen is secreted. It causes the enlargement of the mother's external genitalia, then uterus, and finally the breast. Now what is the effect on breast of the estrogen? Estrogen is basically responsible for the ductal structure of the gland. It causes the development of the ducts of the breast. Now as far as the progesterone is concerned, progesterone will also secreted from the placenta from the syncytial trophoblast, so there is nothing new. Now let's skip that portion and let's discuss the function of the progesterone. Now as far as the progesterone is concerned, basically it convert the uterine endometrium into the decidual cell. So what progesterone do? It make the endometrial cell rich in nutrition, right? And it provide the nutrition to the early embryo. Second thing, as we already know, the function of the progesterone is to preserve the pregnancy, right? So what progesterone do? Progesterone decrease the contractility of a pregnant uterus, and it prevent the spontaneous abortion by contraction. Alright. Now also it increase the secretion of a mother's fallopian tube in the uterus, and it provide the nutrition to the developing fertilized zygote. So it provide nutrition to the developing morula before the implantation. and it also helps estrogen in prepare the mother's breast for the lactation. And yet lactation is not start. Lactation is start only when the maternal circulation is loaded with the prolactin. Got it? Now the next hormone is the human chorionic somatomamotropin. The other name of this hormone is the human placental lactogen. It is also known as the maternal growth hormone of pregnancy. This growth hormone word, it is not for the mother but it is for the fetus. It is basically the growth hormone of pregnancy for fetus. So this hormone has a three name: human chorionic somatomamotropin, then the human placental lactogen, and maternal growth hormone of pregnancy. Now, as we know, all the hormone from the placenta is secreted by syncytial trophoblast. So this one has no exception. It is secreted by syncytial trophoblast, and it begins. Syncytial trophoblast will begin its secretion at the 5th week of the pregnancy. As the pregnancy advances, as the development of the placenta increase, the secretion is progressively increased throughout the pregnancy. Now here's the very beautiful correlation is that amount of HPL secreted is proportional to the size of a placenta. Alright, as the size of the placenta increase, so meanwhile HPL secretion is also increased proportionally to the size of the placenta. So if you want to know exact size of a placenta, exact development of the placenta, you just need to measure the HPL of the maternal circulation. And if the HPL circulation is low, then there should be there is a less placental development. It is known as placental insufficiency. So low level of the HPL in the maternal circulation will ultimately indicate the placental insufficiency. Now what is the function of this HPL, human placental lactogen? So it is a what human placental lactogen or growth hormone of pregnancy for fetus do. It increase the growth of a developing fetus. Now in order to increase the growth of a developing fetus, what HPL do? HPL will dissociate the raw material for the development. What are the raw material for the development? That is free fatty acid and glucose. So what HPL do? HPL causes increase the plasma free fatty acid and increase plasma glucose inside the maternal circulation and make that raw material available to the fetus. Got it? So what the HPL do? HPL causes increase lipolysis in the mother. By doing this lipolysis, it increases the free fatty acid inside the maternal circulation. Now this HPL also increase the availability of the glucose. It increase the mother's glucose level by doing two things. First thing is decrease the insulin sensitivity. Now this decrease insulin sensitivity is done by higher amount of estrogen and progesterone. And by decreasing the insulin sensitivity is ultimately decrease the utilization of a glucose by mother and make sure that there are more amount of glucose is available for the fetus. That's why it is known as growth hormone of the pregnancy. And it has a function is very similar to the prolactin. So first it is named as a human placental lactogen, and it is believed that it is a function similar to those of the prolactin. Got it? But it also has a weak action similar to the growth hormone. Basically it is very weak. It is 100 times more required to promote the growth inside a fetus. Now how placenta protects the fetus? Now in order to protect the fetus, placenta is actually act as a barrier for certain harmful substances. Not all the substances will able to cross the placental barrier. It also provide a nutrition to the fetus, obviously, because it is loaded with hormones. It increase the secretion of the hormones. It causes the transport. It causes the exchange of a nutrition. So it basically provide the nutrition to the fetus. Now its hormone secretion is responsible for proper growth of a fetus. And next one is the progesterone. Progesterone basically decrease the uterine contractility, And by placental progesterone, by decreasing the uterine contractility, it protects the fetus from being expelled before the actual time of a labor. Alright. Now there is one comment is asked, that is the why fetus is not rejected by maternal immune system. Fetus is actually a foreign body to the mother's circulation and for mother's immune system. So why fetus is not rejected? You can see that only connection between the mother and the fetus is the placenta, right? So this placenta is basically made up of the syncytiotropoblast and cytotropoblast. So basically the wall or the resistance for the maternal immune system will be present at the level of the placenta. So there are actually two reasons why the fetus not rejected by the maternal circulation. First one is the placenta, is the placental trophoblast. Now the placental trophoblast is actually separate the maternal and the fetal tissue. That trophoblast is actually do not express the MHC class gene. Now if you learn thoroughly of the immune system in the blood, then you already know that MHC class 1 and class 2 should be present or must be present in order to stimulate the immune system. So because placental trophoblasts do not have this MHC class 1 or 2 gene, they do not express this MHC class 1 or 2 protein over the surface, so antibody against the fetal protein do not develop. Second thing is that during the pregnancy there is a decrease in the production of the maternal antibody. Got it? And the one more reason, the third reason that I not mention over here is that HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, and HPL, human placental lactogen, both the hormone that is secreted profusely during the pregnancy, they both are immunosuppressive. So there are three reasons why the fetus cannot be rejected by maternal system. One, you have to write it down about the placental trophoblast. Second one, you have to write it down during the pregnancy maternal antibody will decrease, and third one is the immunosuppressive effect of a HPL and HCG. Now the next important topic is that physiological changes that happens during the pregnancy. Now it is very frequently asked during university exam, basically in 5 to 6 marks short note. So let's discuss what are the physiological changes that occur during the pregnancy. First changes is the weight gain, obviously. Then the changes that is taking place in the female genital organ. Then the changes in the blood. Then changes in the CVS. Then changes in the respiratory system. Then changes in the gastrointestinal tract. Then changes in the kidney. Changes in the skin, and finally the changes in the metabolism. We are obviously going to learn or discuss one by one all the changes. Now let's discuss about the weight gain. Now total weight gain is about 10 to 12 kg. So if the female is weighing 50 kg before the pregnancy, at the end of the pregnancy that female weight begins reach to the about 60 to 62 kg. So during the pregnancy female will gain the weight about 10 to 12 kg. In this 10 to 12 kg, fetus is more or less 3 kg. Placenta and amniotic fluid will be 1.5 kg. Uterus, the size of the uterus or the weight of the uterus will increase up to 1 kg, and the fluid that is present inside the maternal circulation is increased about 1.5 kg, and the fat accumulation or fat deposition will take place about 3 to 4 kg. Alright, this is the rough approximate figures, but the total figure is constant. Total weight gain is about 10 to 12 kg. Alright, and the fetus is more or less 2 to 3 kg. Now let's discuss about the second one, that a female genital organ. What are the changes that is taking place in the female genital organs? So first one is the uterus. As we all know, during the pregnancy uterus will increase in this size, and that increase in this size is basically due to hypertrophy and hyperplasia of the smooth muscle. By mentioning the smooth muscle, it is basically myometrium. Got it? Now what happens to the ovary? Now as far as the ovary is concerned, during the entire period of the pregnancy there are no follicular changes will take place, so basically no ovulation. And what about the cervix? So during the time of the pregnancy we need to preserve the pregnancy, we have to block the cervical canal, so it increases the cervical gland secretion and form a plug that ultimately block this uterine cavity into closed cavity, convert the uterine cavity into closed cavity, and cervix become smooth or soft. And as far as the breast tissue is concerned, mammary gland, the breast is basically enlarged in the early pregnancy. Next one is the changes in the blood. What are the changes that is taking place in the blood? Now blood has a two portion, one is the plasma, another one is the RBC. Now during the pregnancy both the level is increase plasma and increase RBC, but so total blood volume that contains both plasma and RBC will increase by 30%, but the amount of the plasma volume is more than RBC. Got it? Amount that increase is more increase in the volume of the plasma than the increase in the RBC. So what actually happens, the RBC are getting diluted in higher amount of the plasma. That condition is known as the hemodilution, and this actual condition that is happens during the pregnancy is known as the physiological anemia of the pregnancy. So there are chances that the comment might ask that there are physiological anemia of pregnancy will occur. What you should write it down? You have to write it down the single word that during the pregnancy the increase in the plasma is more than increase in the RBC. It causes the dilution of the RBC, and that's why it is a physiological anemia of the pregnancy will occur. So RBC count is actually not decreasing, but rather plasma is increased. Then the what changes that is taking place in the blood indices. So RBC count is basically decreased obviously by hemodilution, decreased hemoglobin level, decreased PCV, increased ESR, and increased reticulocyte. What happens to the plasma protein? So as the hemodilution occurs, the total plasma protein will decrease, increase fibrinogen level and decrease albumin level. Now as far as the leukocyte is concerned, it is basically increase the total leukocyte count up to 20,000 microliter per microliter, and as far as the platelet is concerned, there is decrease in the platelet count. And the coagulation factor, now pregnancy you can see that there in during the pregnancy there is increased fibrinogen level, that is the clotting factor 1. Along with the fibrinogen, factor number 7, 8, 9 and 10 will also increase. So pregnancy is actually the hypercoagulable state. So there are chances that there is one comment might ask that pregnancy is the hypercoagulable state. So you need to write it down like that. During the pregnancy there is increased amount of fibrinogen, factor 7, factor 8, 9 and 10. This hypercoagulability, as this coagulation factor increase, the pregnancy is become hypercoagulable state, and this hypercoagulability of the blood plays a very significant role in the hemostasis at the time of separation of a placenta during the delivery. We need that hypercoagulable state at the time of a labor, at the time of the separation of the placenta. So if this hypercoagulability is not, then there are chances that there are higher amount of blood loss. So what are the changes in the cardiovascular system? So as far as the position of the heart is concerned, as the fetus grow, the uterus, the entire uterine cavity will enlarge, it pushes all the abdominal content upward, so the heart will be moved upward. As far as the heart rate is concerned, heart rate is increased by 10 to 12 beats per minute, and cardiac output will also increase to 5 to 7 liter per minute. Both the things will be happens due to increased blood volume. Now as far as the blood pressure is concerned, due to increase in the cardiac output, systolic blood pressure is increased, and it is happens there is a vasodilatation in the circulation, so diastolic blood pressure will decrease. So in the pregnancy, basically pulse pressure is increased. What is pulse pressure? It is systolic blood pressure minus diastolic blood pressure. So in this case, systolic blood pressure is increasing and diastolic blood pressure getting decreasing. So the difference between the systolic and diastolic will eventually increase. What about the blood flow? The blood flow to skin, uterus and kidney will increase to meet the demand. And as far as the venous pressure is concerned, increased femoral venous pressure will result in edema of the feet. What it? The feet of a pregnant woman became edema or basically increase. So changes in the respiratory system. So hyperventilation will be there in the pregnancy because progesterone will increase the sensitivity of a respiratory neuron to the carbon dioxide. So as the carbon, if the carbon dioxide is as its normal level, but because there is increased sensitivity of the respiratory neuron, there is a hyperventilation, increase the inspiration and expiration. So gas exchange is basically increase markedly and increase pulmonary blood flow. So as far as the oxygen consumption is concerned, oxygen consumption will also increase to meet the demand. And the increased demand is basically for the fetus and the extra work of the other tissue. Now as you know, there are hyperventilation, there are chances that there is a carbon dioxide wash out. So more amount of expiration inspiration will leads to carbon dioxide wash out. That thing is known as respiratory alkalosis. Got it? So in pregnancy there are chances of respiratory alkalosis. So what are the changes in the kidney function? So as far as the kidney function is concerned, during the pregnancy there is increased renal blood flow, and this increased renal blood flow is basically due to the increased cardiac output and vasodilatation. What happens to the GFR? GFR is also increased because there is increased renal blood flow, and it also associated with increased tubular absorption capacity of the sodium and chloride. You see, steroid hormone, the function of a mineralocorticoid and the function of estrogen and progesterone is more or less same as the mineralocorticoid, but it is a very minor amount, because mineralocorticoid and estrogen and progesterone, all the hormone are synthesized from the same raw material, that is cholesterol. So all the steroid hormone has a slight amount of mineralocorticoid activity. So if that steroid hormone other than the mineralocorticoid, if it is increased more in amount, then it is a mineralocorticoid type of activity. So in pregnancy there is higher amount of estrogen and progesterone, so ultimately it causes the mineralocorticoid type of the action. So what is the action of mineralocorticoid? It increases the absorption capacity of the sodium, right? So this tubular absorption capacity of the sodium and chloride is basically due to higher amount of the steroid hormone. As the sodium and chloride will absorb, the water is also follow, so water retention will also there. It is also along with the glycosuria and proteinuria. So there are higher amount of glucose inside the maternal circulation than is actually absorbed. So there is a loss of glucose inside the maternal urine. It is known as glycosuria. Now as far as the acid base balance is concerned, that I discussed that I already mentioned in our respiratory system, is that due to progesterone there is higher sensitivity of a respiratory neuron to the carbon dioxide, so it leads to hyperventilation. Now due to this hyperventilation there is carbon dioxide washout. So as the carbon dioxide decrease, it causes the alkalosis, and this alkalosis happens due to the respiration. It is known as respiratory alkalosis. So inside the maternal circulation there is a respiratory alkalosis is there. So to cope up with the respiratory alkalosis there is a renal compensation. Now what renal compensation do? It decrease the alkalosis by increasing the excretion of the HC bicarbonate. Got it? Now the changes that is taking place in the GIT function. As far as the GIT secretion is concerned, there is hypochlorhydria. Now what is the hypochlorhydria? It is decreased HCl secretion. Why there is decreased HCl secretion? Because due to decreased gastric acid secretion or gastric secretion. What about the GI motility? Decreased motility is basically delayed gastric emptying. Now, what is the liver function? As you know, already know that there is increased fibrinogen synthesis and decreased albumin synthesis. It is nothing new. Now, morning sickness will be there. What is the morning sickness? Basically, nausea and vomiting will be appear in the very early morning, and it happens in the early pregnancy. It subsides once the female reach to the mid-term or the third trimester of the pregnancy. Now, impaired glucose tolerance basically due to anti-insulinic effect of the progesterone and the estrogen. Now, the changes, yes, changes in the skin. What are the changes that is taking place in the skin? First thing first, there is hyperpigmentation occur. Where this hyperpigmentation will occur first over the face, that hyperpigmentation of a face like this, it is known as chloasma. Hyperpigmented line will be appear over the abdomen like this. This hyperpigmented line is known as linea alba. There is one more terminology that you need to remember. There is a stria will be appear over the abdomen. It is known as stria gravidarum. It is more or less same as Cushing's syndrome, but in Cushing's syndrome there is horizontal striation, while in case of the stria gravidarum there is a vertical striation. It shown in the picture like this. So what is stria gravidarum? There is a scar present on the lower abdomen due to stretching of a skin. Now, increased secretion of the ACTH and MSH during the pregnancy is basically responsible for this change, hyperpigmentation that is appeared over the skin. Alright, that's it for our today's lecture. In next lecture, we are going to discuss about the fetoplacental unit. Thank you.